Wonderful. So hello to you all, and you've all done very well making it to this time of the day if your temperature there is anything like it is in London. So I think we may have lost a few, few because of that. But so a small select group tonight, but you're all here and we're going to have fun. So welcome to the third in the series of Nature Writing Hours. For those of you, I think you've all done this before, but I shall say this anyway. I'm Amanda Tuke. I'm a nature writer. I'm also a very enthusiastic botanist and birder based in suburban South London. So the sort of housekeeping for today, please, if you wouldn't mind staying muted during the writing exercises. It's not such a big deal with a group this size, but if you wouldn't mind doing that. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. I'll have a look at that at intervals and see if I can help with anything. We will have the opportunity to have to chat a little bit, and all I would say is put your hand up and be relatively brief, but once again we're a small group, so I don't think that's going to be an issue tonight. If live transcription is useful for you, I have enabled it, so you just need to go into the menu and switch it on for yourself. So that's all the basics. So with no further ado, let's have a look at what we're going to be doing this evening. So similar to the two previous workshops, we're going to do 3 writing exercises. The final one will be creating a 50-word piece of what I've dubbed thumbnail nature writing. I think a number of you have done that before, so you'll be familiar with that. I'm going to share with you some short readings of nature writing which include dialogue, because that's the theme of tonight's session. We're going to talk about a nature writing issue which relates to the theme. I'll give you some takeaways at the end of the session, and I'll leave a little bit of time in case I can persuade any of you to share something that you've written during tonight's session. So that's the plan for this evening, and as we always do, we're going to go straight into a warm-up writing exercise, a bit different from ones we've done before. So I wanted to introduce you to some good friends of mine, the Carry On Crows. So that's Cornell on the left-hand side, and Avery on the right-hand side. These were some characters that I created a while back, and when I wanted to comment on nature writing. So what I would like you to do, please, is to write a short dialogue about their observations of humans, because that's what Cornell and Avery, who are non-gendered, so if you wish to give them a gender, that's up to you, their views on humans and human behaviour. So you've got about 5 minutes to do that, and just have a bit of fun with it. But I appreciate it's quite different from things we've done before. So over to you, 5 minutes. I'm just going to mute to leave you to do that, and do ask if you have any questions. You have about a minute left. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. I am enjoying Thea's companion tonight. Brilliant, brilliant. Well, there you've got an obvious character for future.
I have. Her name's Pumpkin,
Oh,
so
bless.
because of the thing, but she likes to be on my shoulder because she likes to be involved.
Totally understand. Well, it's fantastic to have her here. So welcome, Pumpkin.
Thank you. I will mute
Okay, so
myself because she's noisy.
um, so that was probably felt a bit strange, and it was definitely when I first had a go at doing it. It was deeply, deeply painful and difficult, but lots of fun actually. So if you enjoyed doing that, it's probably something to have a go at another time. Create your own characters, or feel free to write for these characters, because I quite like the idea of having some shared cartoon characters, which would be quite a giggle. Um, anyway, hopefully that sort of warmed up the writing muscles, and in a way that was kind of relatively stress-free. So for tonight's readings, so dialogue, how you use dialogue in nature writing. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this particular topic with you is because it's something that I do a lot. So sometimes, to be brutally honest, sometimes it's because I'm writing a feature and I'm worried about how I'm actually going to pull the thing together. And therefore, it seems a good idea to talk to lots of other people and build up the feature from that. But there are other reasons that you might deliberately use dialogue in a piece or plan to use it. So it could be, for example, because you want to create a particular tone, and humour obviously is something that works really well if you, to use dialogue to create some humour, but it doesn't have to be humorous. It can also say something. It can make you a bit more engaging as the writer because it says something about the speaker and your relationship with that speaker. And then another reason for doing it could be to just progress the nature story that you are telling. So it can be a way of introducing a story or closing a story or creating the sort of the middle of a story. So I just wanted to share some quite different pieces of writing with you. So the first one, Elle writes wonderful tweets about her conversations with her father, Papa, and I always love reading them on Twitter, and they're very funny. They are obvious comedy duo. So this is one example. So they're not always about nature, but her father's very interested in nature, and I think in the home where he lives, it's an important part of his life. So this was their conversation. Me, second birthday today, Papa, just like the Queen. Was it a garden party? Yes, bit of cake. Told the red kites a long poem about army socks. Anything else? Just a muntjac. A dear poem? In the audience. But I think he liked it too. So that's wonderful, Elle. If you don't already follow her on Twitter, and you're on Twitter, I really would. So then from one of my favourite nature writers, Simon Barnes, who has written, I think his first nature book was How to Be a Bad Bird Watcher, but this is from On the Marsh, which is one of his more recent books. And Simon's interesting because he's actually a sports journalist. I think, in his day job. Um, and you get a kind of feel in his books of the journalistness of him. So he does write creatively, but there's a kind of, it has a slightly journalistic feel as well. So this is an extract from On the Marsh. And On the Marsh is it's the story of him moving with his family to live on the marsh, live near a marsh, and his son, who has Down syndrome, spends a lot of time with him on the marsh enjoying nature, and Eddie in this extract is his son. A great howling mew from above us, and a buzzard rocked back across the sky. Good flying, I said. Gliding, Eddie corrected correctly. So there's often little snippets. They don't tend to be terribly long dialogues in it, but there's little snippets of his conversations with Eddie that just give you a wonderful feel of the relationship between father and son. And then this is from this is another book extract by Isabel Hardman. So she's also a journalist. I think she writes for The Spectator, and she wrote a book called Natural Health Service about her suffering from mental ill health and her relationship with nature and getting involved with nature, which helped her come back to the point where she could start working again. So this is from Natural Health Service. I saw a man peering excitedly at the reeds. Seen anything of interest? I asked, now practiced in the language of naturalists. They're white-faced darters here, he said. A little way back from the water is where I've seen them. I had no idea what these were, but they turned out to be rare dragonflies, recently reintroduced. I really like that extract, although I've never ever heard anybody say seen anything of interest. That sounds slightly clunky to me, but perhaps that is what they say where she was looking at nature. People say, have you seen anything interesting, but not anything of interest. So who knows? But little snippets in her book clearly are part of that. And those conversations she has with naturalists clearly are part of her sort of therapeutic benefit from nature, and she says that in fact. So another tweet which I thought was rather fun, and so showed other half photos of the bird's nest orchid. He said, "It looks dead." I told him I'd walked miles and miles to find this, and he said, "I bet you wish you hadn't now," which I thought was rather fun. So that was Liz Louise. And then the last bit, so this is different again. So this is a piece of my writing which I've used in an article that's just about to be published in Birdwatching magazine. So the whole article is about birdwatching at night. And I wanted to start off, and it was sort of inspired by an excursion I made with my other half, where I'd heard that there were some little owls nesting near where we live in London. And so I asked him if he'd like to come and see them with me. And so this is how the article starts. Me. Patrick said the owls were in the fourth tree, counting up from the bottom of the lane. Do you reckon it's this one? Non-birder other half, patiently. I don't think so. 1, 2, 3, 4, that one. Ah, yes, I'm just too excited. Shouldn't we be whispering? Yeep, yeep. I can see it. It's on the forked branch halfway up on the right-hand side. A second owl flies across the lane, just visible against the darkening sky. Yeep, yeep, yeep. I've not heard that call before. Yeep, yeep. Oh. What's up? I was thinking little owls, like little tawnies. Anyway, and I promise you, he did say it was okay for me to use that. My family have gotten this habit now. If they say anything about nature, they look at me slightly suspiciously and say, "Is that going to go in an article?" But they don't all. So those are all different ways of using dialogue for different purposes. And the other thing that I think is interesting to point out is that the way they've been punctuated is quite different. So when I first started using dialogue, I had to go and kind of look up what was supposed to be good practice in writing dialogue into feature articles. And of course, like all these things, there's no one way of doing it. So all I would say for us for tonight is don't worry too much about that. Different ways of doing it, none of them are going to be wrong as such. As long as something is clearly dialogue, then how you choose to do it is up to you. forget all those grammar lessons at school, because I think that's kind of inhibiting. So let's move on to exercise 2. So reflecting back on your pre-workshop activity, and I am sorry that I changed it partway through, but I wanted to make sure that we had the best, sort of produce the material which would make it easiest for you to write this. So if you have had a conversation with someone about a shared nature experience, that would be brilliant. So in which case, if you could please write up to 100 words, including dialogue, inspired by that. If you've already done the discussion with somebody about their passion for nature, that's absolutely fine. Use that as the basis of your dialogue. And if you didn't have a chance to do either of those, which I also totally understand and accept, then I would suggest writing an internal dialogue based on a recent experience you had in nature. So something going on in your head while you are while you were experiencing nature recently, but just sort of coalesce that into an actual internal dialogue with your, say, talking to yourself. And I would write it like dialogue, so it's clearly denoted like that. So that's the exercise 2. So you've got about 10 minutes to do this. And once again, if there's any questions, then please do pop them in the chat and I'll have a look. So I'll give you a minute's warning near the end of the timing. Okay, you've got about a minute left. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Let's finish the bit that you're working on. So while you were writing, Helen very helpfully said that that is what she would ask. Seen something of interest. So thanks, Helen, for the clarification. So the mystery is solved. People do say that, so I suspect it's just a regional variation. We all say things differently where we live. So but thank you. And so for the next bit, so just have a think about the issues involved in using dialogue. And before we start this, I'm just going to pause the recording.
Amanda, can I ask a question, or do you want me to put it in the chat? Oh,
Chat, please. You have a couple of minutes left. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. So Helen's asked a very good question, which I probably should have mentioned beforehand. But is it necessary to say who's speaking each time, as it uses up too many words without furthering the story? I would say no, if the reader can work that out. So if it becomes a clarity issue, you might need to. But generally, I don't think so, and I guess that's why I said earlier on, in terms of correct punctuation and grammar, if it gets in the way of people understanding, then you might need to work out a way of being clearer who's speaking. But otherwise, I think you can be creative. Otherwise, what's the point of creative writing? So that would be my view on that. That's just my view, and other people may feel differently. If you do, feel free to stick it in the chat. So just move you to one side. So before I offer the chance for sharing, I just wanted to kind of sum up what we've been talking about today. So there are several reasons for including dialogue in your creative non-fiction nature writing. One could be that it can lift a piece of nature writing and break up what is otherwise just your monologue effectively. But there are other reasons too. So the ones we looked at were to create the tone that you want, to say something about the speaker and your relationship with them, or to progress the nature story. And I'm sure that there are other reasons for including dialogue as well. And then generally, for all writing of any sort, I would encourage you to spend around 1/3 of your time writing and 2/3 editing and polishing. And included in that third of your time writing is all the research preparation too. So just to emphasise how important the editing and polishing is. And certainly what I see from all of you is beautifully edited and polished writing. So you're obviously all taking it. My obsession. Obviously following this workshop, I mean, you've done brilliantly. It's baking hot and really hard to get your head around any sort of thinking, I find. I did make the mistake of going to Oxford Street earlier today with my daughter, but I won't be doing that again in the heat wave. Anyway, so please do give your 50 words, including the title if there is one, a final polish. And if you'd like it to be included in an online anthology, then email it to me at that email address. Please, by the end of Sunday, I have let people slip their stuff in late, but it just means that I had to then do the work twice. So just very selfishly, if I could just do it once, that would be great. If you had any relevant photos or any photos that you just think are really nice and I don't know, say something about people in nature, then please, and you'd be happy for those to be used, please include those. And bearing in mind the discussion we had about ethics, you might want to double check with whoever you've quoted whether they are happy to be in something that might appear on an online anthology. And if you'd rather not have your work included, then do please at least share what you've written with one other person that you trust to appreciate what you've done. And maybe this time or next time will be the time that you feel confident to share. So that's what we've been doing tonight. I'm going to now switch off the recording.